Let's settle in. We have a few people who have to catch their flights. That's why we were making these changes. And we have space at the front. Let's fill in the front rows, please. Let's settle in. Hi, Marlene. Hi, Marlene. Hi. I promise you we are making it as short as possible. I know that some people want to go up Table Mountain before they close, so I have you. Got you covered. Okay, so we'll get started. Good afternoon. How are you? How have the 3 days been? Anyway, we'll find out. We'll find out soon. So it's my pleasure to welcome you for this closing plenary. Our theme for this afternoon is Looking Forward, Reflections and Learnings for Inspiring Change. As we get ready to have this discussion or this conversation going, I'd like to invite my panelists on stage. They are going to help us to reflect on the lessons, the learnings, the activities that we've had this day. So first up, allow me to bring on Rachel McDonnell, Deputy Director General, Research and Development at the International Water Management Institute. Rachel, are you in the house? Are you in the house? She's on her way. Okay. Nana, I see you. Nana Amoa, Director, Gender Equity, Youth and Inclusiveness. At AGRA, Alliance for a Green Revolution in Africa. Nana is on her way. Next, we are going to have Lisa. Lisa Hilgers is Advisor for Gender Equality and Social Inclusion at GIZ. Let's welcome Nana and Lisa on stage. Next up, we have, yes, and Rachel is right there. Let's welcome Aslihan Kes, who's an independent consultant, but has been and continues to be a longtime friend of gender. Then we have Evaristo Mapedza. He is Senior Researcher, Social and Institutional Scientist at the International Water Management Institute. Let's welcome the gentleman on stage. So as I mentioned earlier, this closing panel, this plenary is about summarizing the happenings of the 3 days. We are going to share the learnings and reflections on what stood out from your field, either research, policy, or government, or investment. Then we also want to hear from you, what can we do better? What and where are the opportunities? And where do we need to go, and how do we get there? I know I told you I'm just going to take 1 hour and we will close. And believe me, my panelists have promised me that they'll be very brief, so short and brief and very concise. So before we get on to that panel discussion, let's go to Menti. I can see your phones. Because we've been here for 3 days, let's also hear from the rest of you what it has been. So let's go to menti.com, scan the QR code, or go to menti.com and use the number, the code 22906769. What have these 3 days been like for you? Any one word to summarize your experience? invigorating, eye-opening, intense, enlightening, networking, that is very bold, that's big, lively. Okay, let's keep them going. I see just about 36. Let me use the screen in front of me. Yeah, 46 responses have come in. Let's keep them going. Okay, should we move on to the next question? Okay, question 2. What research themes would you like to see in the next conference? What do you want us to discuss when we meet next? And I use the term when, not if. So we will meet. What research themes would you like to see in the next conference? Trade, gender norms. This is your moment to shape the agenda for the next conference. Let's hear, let's get your perspective, maybe something we missed out or something we should have allocated more time. Keep it in the Menti. Okay, let's keep them coming. What are the research themes for our next conference? Okay, keep them coming, but let's move on to number 3. What's your key takeaway? Or what's the follow-up action following the 3 days of discussion? What are you taking with you? What are you taking to your colleagues who never made it for this conference? Partnership. I hope you have forged good partnerships for your research, for your interventions. Resource generation. What's your key takeaway? What's your follow-up? Wealth of research that's available. Okay, solutions. And my panelists are also taking stock. So as they go through their questions, they'll be able to speak to some of those items that you've given us. Final question for you. What did you like the most during this conference? What did you like the most? The food, the venue, the dancing, the wines. Anyway, put serious stuff, you know? The streets. Let me see. Oh, dancing. The people. Yeah, the people. Do you want to come to Cape Town after 2 years? Where is G20 happening? Next year is US. I don't know where we are going next. Okay, so keep that coming. And now I'll join my panelists on stage so that we can reflect on some of the items that you have raised for us. So again, my panelists here, we have Rachel from IMI, we have Lisa from GIZ, Nana from AGRA, Aslihan, an independent consultant, and we have Evaristo from the International Water Management Institute. From the myriad of information that we have disseminated this week, we have had 3 plenaries. We have had parallel sessions, we've had poster sessions in the foyer and also in the rooms that relate to this conference theme of accelerating equality in food, land, and water systems. What stood out for you? And I want to invite Asli and Rachel to weigh in on this question. What stood out for you, starting with Asli?
Thanks, Vivian, and thanks for including me to this panel. I think it's a privilege to be able to have an opportunity to kind of look across and then come up with some thoughts. So, and it was in fact a great couple of days with really insightful new evidence coming online and really exciting, insightful discussions as well. So to me, the one thing that I want to start with as what stood out was the sort of the increased emphasis on maybe systems and scale in how we sort of think about like how do we use our research more effectively. As you know, our colleague, many of you know, Jemima Njuki wisely mentioned, said some years ago, the question is not about how women can contribute to the systems, but how can we make systems really work for women? So I think we asked that question quite often in several of the discussions that I was part of. And it's about like how to address systemic issues, to tackle structural challenges, also which stakeholders to engage and how to be like forging strategic partnerships to get there. So I thought that was really a very useful way of, I just saw here, like how do we connect research to action? I think this all sort of fits into that sort of framework. So it was really exciting. And in the same way, I think I heard more about the role of government and engaging government and how to sort of affect policy, not just designing good policies, but also implementing and building in accountability in our policy processes. So that was also really exciting. And maybe I'm kind of biased because I just came out of a really great discussion with a lot of our GRASP fellows here, women policy leaders in the making, and they will be going back to their institutions in government, in research, in civil society to sort of be the leaders of that effort. So that was really exciting that they're here sort of sharing their learning and their progress in their projects. And also, I think another point was, I think, brought up by Patricia van der Velde, that we can't maybe do it all at once, that we need to chip in and chip away. and you know, where we can really find those key entry points to address some of those structural issues, we should sort of really take advantage of those. And again, I think the mention of government may be an extension of our current international development landscape. I think localization and really having the countries lead the process in general and in gender as well is I think brought up here, and I think it's a good step forward, and that partnership will be key to really getting to that transformational change we need in the field. And just tying it all back, I think we heard a lot about how can we make research and evidence more accessible to all these stakeholders we just talked about, the policymakers, everyone else, private sector as well. So I think that was really a really great use of having researchers and policymakers in one room. So I'll stop here, but maybe just mention one quick thing, because the other thing that stood out for me was the fact that we're kind of convergence of youth and gender inclusion or in one room. I think it was a lot more pronounced this time around. I think it opens new policy priorities for us, like unpaid care or education, like how do we connect with the other sectors more effectively to address gender equality within the youth agenda. So I look forward to that. I think I saw that too as a next maybe item in the next discussion, at the next conference. Thanks, Vivian.
Thank you. Solid points here. Let's appreciate Aslihan's input. Rachel was nodding as she was giving us those points. So Rachel, do you want to weigh in on the same question? What stood out for you from these discussions, these 3 days?
Amazing 3 days. I mean, it's been fantastic to hear so many insights from around the world. So I've got 5 minutes and I've got 5 takeaways, if that's all right. My first one is the message that resonated in every session. Gender equality is not a peripheral issue. It's a driver of resilience, innovation, and impact. We have seen again that when women, men, and people of all identities have equal access to resources, information, and decision-making, the entire system becomes stronger, more sustainable, and more adaptive. Gender equality is a catalyst for transformation. But this also means that women must not be viewed merely as beneficiaries of development interventions. They are core pillars in shaping and implementing decisions at all levels. Their knowledge, lived experiences, and leadership are essential for sustainable and equitable outcomes in agriculture, water management, and community development. Policies and programs must therefore move beyond token participation to ensuring women's full and meaningful engagement in governance and resource management, the governance you talked about. Secondly, we have been reminded that data and evidence remain some of our most powerful tools for change. The work shared this week from gender and climate-smart agriculture to social norms, digital inclusion, and intra-household dynamics shows that we are getting better, we are generating richer, more intersectional insights. Yet it also calls on us to go further, to make sure every invention and every policy is grounded in evidence that reflects the realities of women, youth, and marginalized groups, not just the averages. And this evidence must not remain in reports. We must bridge the gap between research and policy innovation, but ensuring that findings inform inclusive frameworks, which are then translated into actionable, context-specific interventions at the community level. Continuous feedback loops between research and active. We need to make sure that data drives change between researchers, policymakers, and practitioners. Third, this conference has underscored that true transformation demands partnerships and inclusion. No one can achieve this alone. It's collaboration across disciplines. We have so many different disciplines here, across institutions and across generations. The voices of young researchers and practitioners have brought energy and fresh perspectives. In fact, the principle of nothing for youth without youth should guide all our development interventions. Young people bring innovation, energy, and a forward-looking perspective that are critical for tackling challenges like climate change, their food security, and their digital transformations. They must be actively involved in dialogues, planning, and decision-making platforms, not simply passive recipients of outcomes and ticking that box of making sure the youth are there. Fourth, many of you have emphasized the need for institutional leadership and accountability. Gender and inclusion cannot remain add-ons. They must be integral to how we define research excellence, allocate resources, and measure impact. That includes nurturing diverse leadership within our own teams and making sure youth, women, and underrepresented groups are shaping decisions, not just benefiting from them. This also means we need to scale up gender-responsive approaches across sectors, whether it's water or agriculture or climate resilience or natural resource management, so that inclusivity is embedded within institutional frameworks. That strong institutional commitment, capacity strengthening, and accountability mechanisms are essential to move beyond isolated projects, which is so much of what we hear about, and achieve systemic change. And what we have to think about is, as we're looking at the farmers themselves, we have to ensure the term smallholder farmer must not be associated with limited capacity or marginal productivity. As a farmer's daughter from a relatively small farm in the UK, they were a driving force. On the contrary, smallholders are demonstrating remarkable innovation and efficiency, producing more from limited resources and driving food security. And my fifth and final point, what stands out most of this gathering is a sense of energy, purpose, and momentum. We have seen what is possible when evidence, commitment, and courage come together, and when gender and inclusion are not seen as obligations, but as pathways to innovation and justice. And I think that came through every single talk we heard.
Do you agree? That's a lot. And as we know, resources are scarce. So let me come to Lisa. All these issues that are standing out, what's priority?
Yes, thank you for that question. Before I respond, I want to take a moment to thank the organizers of this conference for bringing us all together and to acknowledge all the researchers who have shared such important findings over the past days, as well as the panel speakers whose calls to action have been both urgent and inspiring. And listening to these rich discussions, one thing is clear: our collective commitment to equality is strong. and the environment in which we work in is complex. And when we talk about priorities for action, we have to start with the context we are in. Gender equality and inclusion are more visible than ever in policies, research, and international cooperation. But that visibility has also triggered a growing pattern of backlash and resistance to gender equality. And this resistance is strategic, well-resourced, and thriving in our hyper-connected world. And as reactions grow more polarized and extreme, the space for genuine dialogue starts to feel smaller. But the cost of disengagement is high. If we avoid the difficult conversations, we leave the space to be filled by louder and more harmful voices. So my first of 3 priorities for action is this. We need to keep showing up. We must continue taking space in national, regional, and international dialogues and strengthen how we communicate evidence in key forums like COP, the UN Food Systems Summit, and the Africa Food Systems Forum. And to make sure that evidence really informs policy, data must be digestible for policymakers, and we must communicate clearly what works, showing both the benefits of action and the consequences of inaction, and especially to reach those who still see gender as someone else's issue. Governments need to see that investing in equality isn't charity, it's smart policy. And let's make the upcoming International Year of Women Farmers a moment to join forces, to amplify women's voices in all their diversity, and to build awareness, not only among governments and policymakers, but also among private sector actors and the civil society. And these critical conversations, they happen not only on the high level. We might also face pushback in our daily work, maybe even within our own institutions. And engaging in those conversations takes energy, effort, and sometimes discomfort. But the fight for equality has never promised comfort. It challenges privilege, it unsettles norms, and it provokes tension. And that is exactly how change begins. And that brings me to my second priority, challenging harmful social and gender norms. In so many sessions here, we've heard that barriers women face almost always trace back to those norms. Harmful gender norms silence women's voices, restrict access to land and resources, and assign them sole care and household responsibilities that limit their opportunities for leadership. So we need to continue research on addressing gender norms, supported and backed by solid impact assessments to develop scalable gender transformative approaches. And my third and final priority is meaningful participation. We cannot accelerate equality without truly involving the people we design our work for. Research must open up to become more inclusive, participatory, and grounded in diverse lived realities. Women, youth, and indigenous peoples must be part of the journey from the very start, even if that makes it more complex. They should be co-creators of the research agenda and not just respondents to it. And that's why we need to keep investing in methodologies for participatory, inclusive, and gender transformative research. And I know it's a big task ahead of us, but what I take from this conference is confidence. Confidence that this progress will continue, because every conversation, every collaboration, and every shift in mindset moves us closer to the systems that we want to build.
Wow. Amazing. 3 points. Show up, challenge harmful norms, and meaningful participation. I hope you're tweeting or Xing, because my bottles of wine are at the back and Nathan is taking stock. So keep sharing. Nana, what's priority for you?
Okay, thanks, Vivian. I'm going to maybe take a slightly different tone and try to get really succinct and straight to the point, because I know a lot of us want to go to wine country, like you said. But I do want to appreciate, and I think we don't do this often, I do want to appreciate the male champions in the room. I think there's only so much we can do as a collective if we're not going along with the men in the society. So I have 5 really quick points. What I think is priority actions, just from what we heard over the last couple of days, and it has been a very exhilarating number of days. I think the first point for me is very heavily dependent on research and evidence. But I want to maybe specify that level of evidence, not only to identify the gaps, but for us to be able to amplify and show what is really working. Because I think we've focused a lot of evidence on what's not working, but it's important that now we are able to show what the evolution in women's empowerment work has brought us this far. There are a lot of successful models, a lot of the models that we can scale, and I think we should invest in gathering evidence and research and data to show where the success stories are, where the women influencers in agribusiness are, where the village-based and community-based advisor models are working, and amplify that across the board. To that extent, I think it's also important that we are focusing on financing and investing pilots that can be tested and adapted. I think maybe that's more of a call or request to financial partners and donors, financial institutions that then support us to execute some of these initiatives. But let's give ourselves the space and the opportunity to test models and see when they will and can be scaled and how they work in different contexts. I think the third thing that was resounding in a number of sessions that I participated in is around years as we're planning the next conference. I think we should find ways and very structured frameworks for how we do address GBV and ag. It's something that keeps coming up. I think you see it a lot in the WAFSA reports. You see it in a number of research out there. So I think it's important that in the next 2 years, or maybe next couple of months, a group of us in this room, or maybe with other colleagues, come up with a very clear structure and way for how we address GBV in agriculture. The fourth point for me would be around the care economy. That was a resounding element. I think what we need to do there is work with the institutions that have already begun some of the engagement on national care policies, and then maybe move towards how we work with our government, so other ministries, to actually put resources into unpaid care work for women. I think we've talked about it for a really long time, and so in the next 2 years we want to be showing where that's working, and go beyond the conversations. And I think the fifth point for me is going to be how do we work, or maybe focusing on how we work towards reshaping the metrics. So very similar to the first point, where we are researching models that work, what kind of metrics are we using to not even tell the business case, but to just make that justification. So reshaping metrics, that then reshapes the narrative, and will help us to reshape relationships that then reshapes the system. Because we do want to make sure, Aslan, to your point, we want to make sure that the system is ready to support women in agri-food system space. So I think, for me, those will be 5 priorities that I believe we can take on from an amazing 3 days we've had here and action on them. Thanks, Vivian.
Thank you. Thank you. Care economy, GBV in ag, reshaping the metrics. I'm sure Diana is happy about that from the panel in the morning, just looking at the numbers. Okay, you did mention Ashley, and I wonder if she has anything to weigh in on that particular aspect of the priority issues. In 30 seconds.
I was going to, I kind of alluded to this in my first answer, that I think the convergence of youth and gender what's the word? Kind of the agendas is really great to see in this room, and I think that sort of opens us up to thinking about other partnerships and engaging with different stakeholders. One thing that I kind of observe sometimes, having been in the field for as long as I am, is like we are sometimes a few steps back trying to close the gender gaps we have to be sort of ahead of that, the thinking, you know, the new youth reports talks about the unemployment bulge and all the opportunities for both young men and women in the sector. And we need to really go back to those structural issues, as I was saying, in education, in the care sector. So the transitions from youth to adulthood happens in a way that is that brings opportunity and equality in the sector rather than sort of after the fact thinking. So to me, that's a very interesting sort of a priority in terms of continued research, but also thinking about where are our policy priorities and how do we engage some of the more maybe non-traditional actors for us in the ag sector. As I was talking, it is about education, social services, and so forth.
Mm-hmm. Okay, great. Let's appreciate her input. Final question. I promise I will not keep them here and I'll not keep you in the room for too long. So Evaristo, as the researcher on this panel, together with Rachel, what are the most pressing needs now for research? Now speaking for the rest of the CG researchers or researchers from other institutions. As researchers, what should we look into?
Thank you very much, Vivian. And speaking towards the end, I almost think I'm tempted to say I agree with the 5 points raised by my DTG and the other panelists. But so maybe if I am to reflect in terms of what we could do as researchers, especially within the CG system, doing research for development, maybe I would sort of preface my 5 points. I'm just copying my DTG on 5 points. So I would preface my 5 points by highlighting the point that as gender researchers, we need to historicize our gender research. On the first day's plenary, it was one of the key things that was coming, that when you are looking at gender in South Africa, for example, as our host country, it's not just looking at gender as it is now, but you need to have it grounded within the historical trajectory of this particular country. And I remember one of the panelists was even mentioning going back to 1652. So it's an issue that I think as CG researchers, when we are doing our gender research, let's try to historicize our gender analysis so that we don't have an artificial understanding of what is gender today, but we don't understand where it came from. And that might also help us inform where it is going. Maybe with that sort of background, I would then say my 5 points. The first one would be, we actually, as the CG Center, I think we need to be leading in terms of conceptual and framing of GESI and providing leadership in terms of GESI, in terms of what we are doing. One of the panelists here was mentioning that she managed to make changes within the development organization that she was in because of the report which had been published on gender. And I think this is one of the key areas where as CG we need to be taking a lead by making sure that we are taking leadership in terms of how we conceptualize gender and providing leadership power in terms of our understanding of gender so that we inform even development agencies, governments, NGOs, funders. And some of the things that we could be looking at in terms of this particular point is that for instance, we are talking about artificial intelligence, but what is our take in terms of gender? Beyond just maybe looking at it as in terms of ethics, what are the gender research issues that we are going to address? Inclusive scaling, for example. How do we sort of amplify our detailed case study from the local and national to a global level? So that way, I think CG, in terms of research, we need to take leadership on that. And then my second point is actually related to what also came out in some of the discussions in terms of mindset shifts. I think we really need to have a serious mindset shifts. And usually when you talk about mindset shifts, most of us, we think it's somebody else who is sitting next to you who has to change. But we don't want to reflect on our own points to say, we need to change as individuals. So, and we start to think outside the box. And in fact, when the discussion was going on about changing our mindsets, I even thought maybe we shouldn't be thinking about going outside the box and thinking outside the box and then getting back into the box and implementing. Maybe let's get rid of the box and start thinking openly in terms of how we address gender within the CG and beyond. And then and especially related to mindset shifts as well, I hear maybe one thing that I would also maybe want to see us change. I heard, I think, a number of people talking about farmers being the last mile. I think it was in 2 sessions that I heard about that. But for me, I think that's where we need to start changing our mindsets. Farmers are not the last mile. They are the first mile. let's start with the farmers and then go back, because if we are seeing them as the last mile, then we are not designing for them. Let's understand their circumstances in terms of our gender research. And then, and then my third point is on communicating Jesse. I think we need to do a better job in terms of how we communicate our science. We might be good researchers, but sometimes we fail to communicate our research findings. And how do we make sure that we package our findings in a way that it better informs developers, funders, policymakers, so that they do get a message of what we are doing. For example, we should be looking at how do you have these actionable solutions on socio-technical innovations bundling, which we need to do as part of the CG agenda, and we need to be taking leadership in terms of that. And then, and maybe the fourth aspect that I would want to address is that we shouldn't be looking at just partnership. I think what we are looking for are gender-smart partnerships. How do we ensure that as the CG, we are leading in terms of making sure that we influence, we don't become just genders responsible, but our partners that we work with, they don't see that responsibility in us. How do we ensure that our partnership, we transform our partnerships so that even our partners will also change, and that's how we actually change millions and millions. I think Inga was talking about sub-Saharan Africa having over 30 million farmers. So we need to have greater impact through that. And then maybe my, within that, in terms of gender-smart partnerships, it's also looking at youth and also the work that we are doing. I think we have been, even in this conference, most of us were talking about women, but how do we also have disaggregated understanding of women? It's not just about women. Women are different. What are the different profiles? What are their challenges? And what are the solutions that we are providing for the different typologies of women that we are looking at? So I think it's something area that we need to do more as the CG. And maybe, Vivian, you're not looking at wanting me to stop, or okay, it's my last point, number 5.
You're eating into the time for your boss.
Okay.
Right here.
In that case, I'll just stop by saying that we also need to have an intersectional lens research. I think on that note, I think I have to stop. And over to you, Rachel.
Great. Thank you. Thank you, Evaristo. And for bringing me back to the session. Maybe I had zoomed out. Is that possible? Anyway, over to you. What are the pressing needs for research in terms of, as the CG, just as Evaristo has mentioned, perhaps there are a few items that you want to add on to that?
Of course, endorsing everything Evaristo is saying. One of the things that I see as a CGIAR, is that every center has been given equally funds to support work going forward. We have to use that wisely. We have to join it up. We have to ensure that we are, as Inga said this morning, hardwiring in Jesse research into everything we do. Women entrepreneurs, women farmers, women water managers, women ministers of agriculture, women ministers of water, whoever it is. We have to empower that. The CG is completely committed to impact these days. It's not research for research's sake, it's impact. So we have to think how we can use those funds and the work we can do to make sure those women and the people that we work with are the agents of change. And I'm not a gender researcher, as you might have worked out. But one of the things, the question I kept wanting to ask, and I didn't because I was too shy because you're all such experts, I wanted to ask about gender-based violence. Because I work in the world of drought, and we know that when droughts come in, women get hit, or women suffer. And it's something that really affects me and really makes me, as a researcher, is something I really want to work on. But I don't have the tools, so please help me and all those dealing with those stress situations where women are often the recipients of unwanted attention, if I put it that way.
Great, let's appreciate her. So with that quick round, that's where we wrap up this conversation. I want to thank you, Evaristo, Aslihan, Nana, Lisa, and Rachel for those insights. Thank you, and yes, you may leave the stage. Thank you very much. Evaristo, you still want to stay on? You know, he's the one who was asking me during the gala dinner, am I supposed to wrap up and tell people how this gala is? How do I report back on the gala dinner? So that was interesting. Okay, so we are done with the more serious stuff, and now we want to come back and award or reward those of you who did extremely well. So at this moment, I want to welcome Caroline Mushiri, who is the chair of the poster committee. She is going to let you know who the winners of the posters are. Caroline, welcome. Let's encourage her.
Okay. All right. Good afternoon, everyone. I must say I've never been here in front of all of you. But I have something small to say. Allow me to read it because I want it to come out the way I want it to. On behalf of the CJR Poster Session Organizing Committee, it is a pleasure to stand here at the close of what has been a deeply insightful international gender conference. One of the most exciting components of this conference was our poster session, specifically dedicated to showcasing the incredible work being done by our early career researchers. The researchers we celebrated in these sessions are driving the next generation of evidence and impact. Their posters weren't just summaries of work. They were windows into new ways of thinking about how we integrate gender across all research areas supporting resilient livelihoods and policy development. To select the winners from such a high caliber pool, we evaluated each poster based on these criteria. 1, the soundness of the methods and the analysis, the effectiveness of the poster in communicating complex information, and the relevance and potential impact of their messaging. To all our early career researchers in this room who participated, whether you receive an award today or not, your dedication to integrating gender into your work is what drives this community forward. Thank you for making the poster session a success and for sharing your compelling research with us. And now, without further ado, it is my great privilege to welcome our partner, GHV, on stage to introduce themselves and to announce the recipients of the Best Poster Awards. Dr. Esther Njuguna, welcome on stage.
It feels very weird to come up here and say I'm not part of the CG because I've been part of the CG for such a long time. It's a privilege to be here and to tell you about where I have gone since I have been here for 13 years. I joined the Global Health Visions, a network of researchers and development actors that are working from home and keeping engaged with the systems. And we were inspired by the challenge of unpaid care work, where people, especially women, have to leave their work, their active careers, because maybe they have young children. And so we wanted to create a flexi operation that allows us to continue working even as we raise families. And this network of researchers has grown, and we are a global organization with capacity to contribute. And I just wanted to say we are here to celebrate the young researchers. And if bringing up your family and bringing up children is a challenge, we could be an option. And so I'm very, very happy that we have the opportunity to announce the winners. And for theme 1, transforming gender and social norms for access and resilience, we have Tendai Museka Saidi. And she comes from Award. Congratulations for a very good job. Are we getting a photo? I assume we are. Congratulations, and we wish you a great journey. For theme 2, we have scalable solutions for women's empowerment in agri-food systems. Nelly Mokaminjiro, International Livestock Research Institute. Karibu Nelly. Well done. Thank you for sharing with us your work. It's been very inspiring. Congratulations. Come. And for theme 3, we have innovations for resilience, livelihoods in food and water systems. Alice Nayabo, Swedish University of Agricultural Sciences. This is a package for you. And for theme 4 and 5, inclusive leadership and youth empowerment in agri-food system, Sumitra KC from IPMI, Nepal.
And Manohara Kadka, please come on stage and receive this on her behalf.
And we're going to have an extra gift to one or two of these 4. So I'm going to welcome all our winners back to the stage. And what we thought as a consulting organization, we would like to share our services with those that won. And amongst our services, we have strategy planning and operations, we have monitoring and evaluation and learning, coalition building, policy advocacy, communications, project design and management. Should this be a need within the organizations or the projects where that winner comes from, we could give you 10 hours of work, which could translate to almost 10 weeks of work. So I'm welcoming all of you, the 4 of you, back to the stage. We figure this out.
We only have 2 winners for this, so out of you 4, some of you have to pick a raffle ticket.
Unfortunately, we could not do all 4.
Yes.
And it looks like we had only ladies in the poster session. I don't know whether that was intentional. Next time. So you'll get 10 hours of consulting services from GHV. We can talk after this and we see what that will be. You can have it for your project or you can donate it to your institution. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone.
Okay, and one more award. Do you know which one it is? Nathan, please. Oh, award. We have award here. Award. Africa Women in Agricultural Research for Development. I hope you actually visited their exhibit. They're amazing partners. We always work with them. Nathan, come let us know who takes home the social media award.
Good afternoon, everyone. This is going to be short and sweet. Yeah, we'll show it. I see my timer is going down very quickly. I have 1 minute and 20 seconds, so let's do this quickly. The competition was tight. Thank you so much for your engagement under the hashtag Accelerating Equality in Ag. I think we started this award in the last conference, and again, the competition was tight. Of course, we're looking at different analytics, social media analytics, which I won't get into right now. But for the 2025 Gender Conference, our winners for the social media awards, and I'll start from the top this time, goes to Dorcas Alami Sanginga. You here? And I'll invite Nicolene to give the awards. Where's Dorcas? Are you here? A round of applause for Dorcas. Just come. So just come on the stage. Nicolene will give you the award. And so as you can see on the engagement, her post actually had like, I think, over 126 likes and, you know, a number of reposts. So you're famous, Dorcas. Thank you for engaging. And of course, the next is Niyati Singaraj. Okay, I don't think Niyati is here. Is Niyati here? Ayushi, are you here to pick the award for her? Are you here, Ayushi? Or home? Who can pick the award for Niyati? Someone from Iri? Home, you're here. Just come and pick. So just to mention that Niyati was top, I think, in the last conference. So it shows some consistency over the years. Huh? Let's give it up for Niyati. And I see my timer is done. So I'll just go through the next ones quickly. And next, we have Erin Maguire. Erin, let's give it up for Erin. Is Erin here? Okay, someone will pick it up for her. Thank you. And as you can see, Erin had, I think, over 54 likes on the posts. So let's keep engaging. Let's keep the conversation on accelerating equality in ag going. And finally, might not have been the top post, but for consistency. We saw a lot of consistency with Angela Opondo. Are you here? So for consistency in posting, Angela, you get an award. Yay, let's give it up for Angela. Come on, let's give it up for Angela. For consistency, yeah? And so why this is important is that we need to get the conversations on gender in ag out there, right? Because these are important conversations. So thank you so much, and let's keep engaging.
Congratulations to all the winners, and that is actually something that was said by, in all the three plenaries, we don't communicate enough. So use all the channels that you can to be able to get your message out there. While we were organizing this conference, one of you wrote to me and said, how come you haven't invited my institution to this conference? Well, they got an audience. I'll not say who, but if you don't talk, one of my bosses says, the baby that does not cry does not get any milk. Okay. Now, we are just remaining with, say, 20 or 15 minutes. And so we want to get our closing statement. And with us, he has been here for the entire 3 days. And he is from the Western Cape Department of Agriculture. You know, they have been wonderful sponsors. And so at this juncture, allow me to bring on stage Mr. Daryl Jacobs. I've heard from your team, you are such an amazing, director and boss. So thank you so much for partnering with us, and let's get your closing statement.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon. I know I stand between you and Table Mountain or the wine route or wherever you plan to go. But it's really a great privilege and honor for me to be here and for my department to have been, and the Western Cape government to have been participating in this particular conference. So let me say, as we draw this transformative conference to a close, I want to extend my deepest gratitude to each of you for your presence, your insights, and your unwavering commitment to advancing gender equity in the food, land, and water systems. In the lead up to this particular conference, I was reminded that women are 51% of the population, but 60% of the poor, 83% of single parents, doing 66% of the work, producing 50% of the food, but earn just 11% of the pay, and own only 20% of the land. It's a timely reminder of the significance of this conference and the challenge that confronts this network. You each outlined your expectations at the start of this conference, where you had indicated you wanted new insights, collaboration, connecting, building relationships, shared learning. And we started the conference with Tariq Jenkins sharing with us and teaching us a little bit of Khoi, the language of the soil. We noted at the outset the backlash against gender, emphasizing the need for global solidarity. We also observe a global assault on facts, on evidence-based research outcomes, which, if it does not align to political ideology and belief, it is rejected as fake news. These are dangerous times, which reinforces the value and the significance of this conference. We were rightly challenged by the Executive Managing Director of CGIAR, Ma'am Luafi, to support greater resource allocations for gender research, to strengthen partnerships in a world of greater conflict, to listen to voices of women and young farmers, and to harness the power of data and intelligence for greater impact. Over the past few days, we've shared powerful stories, rigorous research, and bold strategies. We have challenged assumptions, built new alliances, and reaffirmed our shared belief that inclusive systems are not only more just, they are more resilient, more productive, and more sustainable. I've been especially inspired by the research insights from across the globe and encouraged by the number of young researchers that will lead this particular discipline into the future. Cape Town has once again proven to be a space of dialogue and a space of possibility. From grassroots voices to global perspectives, we have seen how gender intersects with climate, with technology, policy, and with tradition. And we have been reminded that real change happens when we listen deeply, we act collaboratively, and we hold ourselves accountable. To our policymakers, and I'm one of those, this is indeed our moment. The evidence is clear, the voices have spoken, and the urgency is real. We call on all policymakers to embed gender-responsive approaches into every layer of policy and planning, committing to co-creating the policy framework as a drive towards collective ownership of outcomes and to facilitate implementation. From land tenure reform to water governance, from agricultural innovation to climate adaptation, gender equity must be a cornerstone, not a footnote. Funders must be encouraged and mobilized to invest in women-led initiatives. We need to protect the rights of rural and indigenous communities, as articulated also by Tariq, and ensure that policy frameworks are not only inclusive in intent, but transformative in impact. However, we have to note that inclusive policies do not lead automatically to change on the ground. Neither is the fact that there is no shortage of research, but somehow it doesn't always lead to changes in policy. My departmental officials who have been here for the last 3 days highlighted the need to ensure that gender is inclusive in all of the work that we are doing, prioritizing capacity building and empowerment of women in the workplace to drive gender equity and inclusiveness. Indeed, we must drive to ensure women's participation at all levels in the home, communities, and at the policy level. As we leave here, let us carry forward the energy and the urgency of this moment. Let us ensure that the commitments made in these rooms translate into action in all of our communities, institutions, as well as government. Let us continue to center the voices of women, youth, and marginalized groups, not as beneficiaries, but as leaders and co-creators of the future we all deserve. I take to heart the need, as expressed in one of the sessions, the need to create a system that empowers and inspires women to assume their leadership role within society. I want to leave you with the words of Wangari Maathai, a visionary leader and environmentalist, who understood the power of inclusive change. And she said, the higher you go, the fewer women there are. But we must not wait for others, and I want to challenge every woman, you must not wait for others to speak for you. You have to raise your voice and say, I can do it, I will do it. Thank you to the organizers, the facilitators, the support teams who made this particular gathering possible. To the speakers, the panelists who inspired us, thank you to each and every single delegate. You brought your passion and your expertise to the table. Together, we are not just imagining a better world, we are building it. I admit we still have a far way to travel, but we all know that the journey of 1,000 miles starts with the first step, and we are already well on the way on this journey. Safe travels. Let's remain focused to achieve measurable progress on the vital work of accelerating equality in food, land, and water systems, especially as we highlight 2026 as the International Year of the Human Farmer. With that, I thank you all.
Okay, what more remains than for us to have a conference evaluation and go home? Okay, my colleague is going to put a QR code on the screen. We still want to get your feedback. We want to know whether you want to keep having these gatherings. It will take just a few minutes, please. And then the final thing on my list is the vote of thanks. So that should only take us the next 5 minutes, and we are out of this room. I will evaluate myself. Okay. I did go through my list. How many are done? Okay. We have collected a lot of feedback. Normally we'll have a debrief and we'll also have a report. You'll see all this information in that report. 1 more minute, we are done? Or we'll keep going so we get started with the vote of thanks. Okay. Moving on to the vote of thanks segment, which is the very final bit. I will not come back on stage, so allow me to welcome Henry, Roman, and Nicolene to take us through this last segment of the very final vote of thanks and closing. Thank you very much. I have been your host for this conference. It has been my pleasure.
Hi, good afternoon, everybody. I've got the easy job. I just have to say thank you for coming. But a little bit more than that, I have to give a few special thank yous as well. So from the organizers, from IMI, from CGIAR, we really extend our thanks to the Western Cape Department of Agriculture, and in particular to Mayor Mogale Sebopetsa and Mr. Daryl Jacobs. We have a token of appreciation for you as well. Sorry. Yeah. And then we also, you know, conferences and events like this don't just happen by themselves, and a lot of the time the folks who stand up here are not the ones that do the hard work. So we also want to appreciate the IMI team that you saw at the registration desk, running around, etc. So I'm going to call up, in no particular order, but if you all can come up, Karen Hunter, Ntombi Zodwa, Matonzi, Mpom Kuana, Kesha Moses, and Mpoentle Peto. Get a photo of it.
And then, of course, I have to thank Henry. I also want to thank Henry for hosting us and for getting his team to help us out. And I also want to give a personal thanks to the whole team, because from visas to hotels to everything, they took care of us. So thanks again to Amy and Rachel too. Thanks. So. And there's a lot of other people we want to thank at this point. First of all, you know I started with thanking you guys. I'm back there again, sorry. So I thank you again for taking the time to be here. We really do appreciate it. We think it's an amazing opportunity to see all of you guys. And I love the fact that almost everywhere you went, there was a buzz. So really appreciate the conversations, the interactions. I hope you've made lifetime friends over the last few days. And you did a lot of nice dancing, so that was also nice. So that's my bigger thank you to the whole group. We mentioned IMI, but there are also a lot of other service providers. I hope they don't mind me, but the group of geeks over there, thank you as well for the whole media. They've been amazing, as well as the whole conference setup, etc. So they've all the service providers, we do thank them. I also have to give a big thanks to my team. Vivian, who's been running it all, sorry. Diana and the whole scientific committee, amazing. They put it all together, so thank you too. Nathan on the comms. All this is because of Nathan, so thanks. And then all the other people in the team, Caroline, you just saw with the posters, Rachel, Ken, Isadora, everyone in my team, amazing. Thanks for doing it, so I didn't have to do too much, so I really appreciate it. So all I have to say now is, who's hosting the next one? Thanks again, travel safe. We hope to see you in 2 years' time. Thank you. Thanks.
Job well done. Now you can relax a
Now I
little
can
bit.
relax a little bit.